Now, my next guest, well, he started his motorsports journey running modifieds at places like Wall Stadium and Flemington Speedway in New Jersey. Then he was hired by the International Race of Champions Series. From there, he started his crew chief career, first with Bill Davis Racing, and eventually he guided Jeff Gordon to 3 Winston Cup championships. He was a car owner for several years and has worked as a TV analyst. He was inducted into NASCAR's Hall of Fame in 2018, and now he's teamed up with former Cup champion Tony Stewart to present the Superstar Racing Experience, SRX for short, this coming season on CBS television. I am pleased to welcome an old friend, Ray Evernham, into the wind tunnel. Ray, I got to tell you, I was beginning to get afraid that the listing of all your accomplishments might leave very little time for an interview, but that turned out not to be the case. So, how are you?
I'm doing great, Jack. It's great to see you. And we are old friends in a couple of ways. We've certainly got older, but we've been involved in this sport for a very, very long time. So we've come full circle now with certainly with the SRX program, and because you and I both were young men when I started with that IROC series many moons ago.
And look, I think that what we also share in common is our racing roots. You know, born and bred, cutting our teeth with the open wheel modifieds on the short tracks of the Northeast. And I wonder what that instilled in you throughout your entire career.
I think that, when your DNA comes from the short track, there's just something. There's something about the people that you grow up around, and that I really feel like we were so fortunate, Jack, to have grown up in a time where the people were good. Back then, there were people who worked hard. They worked their jobs and then worked on their cars at night. And there were many times that they sacrificed, or their family sacrificed so that they could go to the races. And when you went to the races, it was more than just a competition. It was a celebration. There was goodwill, there was camaraderie and fellowship. And I think I learned a lot of things about life and work ethic. Many of the things I try and do and think about today are things that I learned by watching people that again, that you see that that their hands are calloused and their jeans may be a little bit tattered because they've worked their butt off all week long for that pure love of something. And I think it taught me how to appreciate our sport so much more.
I wonder, where was it instilled in you at first to become an individual well before it was appropriate to think outside the box? Because all the way back to the International Race of Champions, can't be done was not in your lexicon. Let's figure out a way seemed to be the cliche you wanted to live by.
I think because I loved racing, and I didn't know how to really go about it successfully. And I was so fortunate to have gotten that job at IROC and work for a man named Jay Signori and his wife, Barbara. And Jay Signori, a lot of people may not know that name, but Jay Signori was not just the director and one of the owners of IROC, but he was the team manager. He was heavily involved in Penske racing. He was Mark Donohue's best friend. And Jay Signori is a brilliant mechanic. And to be around Jay early in my career and learn the Penske way, if you will, and then learn how Jay and Mark Donohue had done so many different things, that's really when I learned how much more you could do, that whole find a way and, how to make things perfect. And, the stuff that Jay Signori, again, taught me that, that unfair advantage, if you will, that Penske unfair advantage and the Mark Donohue unfair advantage it is a way of life for Jay Signori. And as I said, I was so lucky, blessed, whatever, to have worked for him.
Well, you kind of capitalized on that unfair advantage.
It's only unfair if you're racing against somebody that knows.
Easy now, that's right. But it catapulted you and a youngster by the name of Jeff Gordon. Tell me a little bit about the relationship that you developed with Jeff, because it was unique in so many respects.
And I think the last word you said there, respects, right? And I think that respect is super important in any relationship. And Jeff Gordon and I have always had respect for one another. We still, to this day, we're great friends. We do a lot of things together. People will tell you, if we're together for 10 minutes, we're acting no different than we did 30 years ago. But Jack, I think there was just something about Jeff from the first time that I met him, first time I ever worked with him. There was something pure and honest about him, incredible talent. Again, working with all the people that I worked with at IROC, I was able to recognize that this kid was special, and we made a connection. And there was a piece of him, his career that I filled, and a piece of mine that he filled. And I know that sounds a little bit corny, but we were able to be way better together than we ever were apart, because I've never had a relationship with another team member like I had with Jeff, that we could do that. Whatever we touched seemed to work. And even when we get together and do projects today, whether it's a television show or a charity thing, it flows and it's successful. And I'm again fortunate enough that we get together at the right time.
What in God's name possessed you to become a car owner?
All right. You can say a lot of things, but in the end, right, it ends up being about the money, right? You win all these trophies, you do all this stuff. Somebody comes in, offers you a bag of money, and you're like, holy man, that's a lot of money. How much money? You're gonna pay me what? That's a lot of money. So that was the biggest part of it, and it allowed me to honestly try to do something that part of my my issue is I take on projects that seem impossible to other people. So I wanted to see if I could do that. Start that Dodge team from nothing in less than 500 days and make it successful without Jeff Gordon and without the support of Rick Hendrick. You got to remember, when Jeff Gordon and I had a great run, but we also had the safety net of Big Daddy Rick there. Who gave us whatever we wanted whenever we wanted it. And I think it was important for me to find out if I could do as well, if I could do something on my own without those guys. And I feel like Jeff felt the same way. He needed to know if he could do it without me as a crew chief as well. So I think that, there were a lot of parts of it, Jack, but like I said, the money wasn't bad.
Show me the money. Yeah, that goes without question. Let me project forward. Everybody in NASCAR are talking about this Gen 7 car. We've all gotten peeks at it when it's been shaken down by so many different drivers. What's your take on the direction that NASCAR's taking, hopefully starting next year?
I think it has to be done. And I applaud them for, doing something that's not easy. They have to buck a little bit of tradition there, but I think it's the only way to save our sport. It's the only way to get the competition back where it needs to be. It's the only way that they will be able to bring in new team owners and new manufacturers. I think a very similar thing to what Jay Fry and the group over at IndyCar have done that's been very successful. At some point, you've got to cut cost. And the biggest cost that you can cut is the crazy research and development of everybody trying to beat everybody by building their own cars and custom parts and pieces and the spindle of the week and brake packages. Got to have this. It's for guys like me who like to invent and tinker and play. I get it, but that ultimately is what drives the price up in racing. So I think getting back to getting a basic car, giving people a little bit more adjustability, and putting it, I'd like to see them give the tools a bigger toolbox to the crew chiefs so he can adjust to make it something a little bit more custom to his driver. But ultimately, I think this is probably one of the best decisions that NASCAR's made in a long time.
All right, you mentioned Jay Fry in the NTT IndyCar Series. Somewhere on the horizon, will we see Ray Evernham and maybe another group that's going to give you a pile of money field in IndyCar, at the very least in the Indianapolis 500?
We've talked about it. There's things that I've looked at. I think it's something that I would love to do. I've actually had conversations with people like Chip Ganassi about that. I don't know if the timing's right for me right now, but participating in the Indy 500 as a crew chief is something I've always wanted to do. The opportunity to do it as a car owner, or at least be involved somehow, still excites me. That's a race that I dearly love and a place that is very special to me. So I'm not going to say no, that can't happen. But for right now, my number one goal, I've got to focus on getting this SRX program where it needs to be.
And let's talk about that. First and foremost, I think the racing community, I wouldn't say was shocked, but surprised, because we're calling it IROC 2.0. Is that correct?
To me, out of pure respect, it really is. If you look at the IROC series in the 70s and 80s, man, that was the ticket. It was incredible. It was a show. Celebrities were there, putting these guys, Formula One guys, racing IndyCar guys, racing stock car guys, and the names, the greatest in the sport were there. It was a very, very well received show. And, as racing got more complicated and it became tougher to get drivers and sponsor conflicts, obviously it put pressure on IROC. So we thought, okay, let's take all the good things IROC had and try and avoid the things that they couldn't overcome. So, with drivers retiring earlier or not running full schedules, a lot of these guys, and that their full-time career is over, well, they can still wheel the heck out of a car, right? So you've got guys like Bill Elliott and Tony Stewart, Bobby Labonte, Paul Tracy, guy Kanan and guys like that are just can wheel the hell out of a car. And so we said, let's take it back to the short track. Let's keep the speeds down. Let's let these guys really lean on one another. And then let's throw in the mix where we're going to bring in, all right, you think you're that good? Let's go see if we can beat the local hero at his own short track, and then let's bring in a weekly ringer. Okay. Somebody, okay. Can you beat our guys? And we CBS has been fantastic. It's going to be on CBS network, prime time on Saturday nights. They think it's a great idea, but going to the heartland where these superstars came from and where instead, there's nothing wrong with being on a super speedway. I get that, but we're going to be on the half miles and the quarter miles and the dirt tracks right there in front of the people and find out, okay, who's got the talent to drive these cars and bring out those personalities, really, really dig down and introduce people. You think, Bill Elliott, or you think, Tony, you think, Paul Tracy, we've got guys that have so much personality, like Willie T. Ribbs. Not a lot of people know how great of a race car driver Willie T. Ribbs was. And it hadn't have been for timing and the things that were different in America back then, Willie could have been our first Formula One champion, right? Or not the first Formula One champion, but one of our Formula One champions. And so, we're going to try and tell those stories, have a little fun. And I keep saying guys, I should say drivers, because Jack, we've got some female drivers, and we got one that we're going to announce shortly that I'm going to tell you what, these guys better be ready for her in the short track.
Come on, give me the scoop.
Out of the way.
Come on, give me the scoop. Come on.
Come
on, I'm twisting your arm.
All I know, I can tell you that she's a.
Does she live in your house?
No.
Okay.
God,
Does she hail from Roscoe, Illinois?
No.
Wow. Okay.
No. But you just keep thinking about it. But this. It's going to be an exciting when some of these ringers show up and they're going to go, wow,
well,
I wasn't expecting that.
I want to lobby for a ringer. He's going to join us a little bit later in the show. He may be in his 80s, but he can still wheel a race car.
I know who you're talking about.
I think you ought to go after Mario. I think he would.
Marco's in. His grandson, his grandson Marco is in, and we're really excited to have him because we've got that Andretti name. It's very hard to have a superstar race series without an Andretti name in there. And again, exciting for me because I got to work with Mario on the IROC cars, and I got to work with Michael on the IROC cars. Now I get to work with Marco, and I'm very, very excited about that. But Mario Andretti, if Mario came in and said, "Look, I want to run one of them cars," I'm going to have to bump somebody out or build another car because
because I'm going to ask him point blank when he joins us.
Well, he is an amazing, amazing race car driver. To me, the world's most famous, the most recognized race driver in the world. But as you know, he is an incredible gentleman in person to everybody he knows. And he's treated me, when we met at IROC in the 1980s, he was such a gentleman to all of us. And as I said, I've known him well over 30 years now, and he still treats it the same way. He's a class act.
Listen, it's really, we could go on and on and on. I want to have you back maybe after the first race in the Superstar Racing Experience, because we didn't even pick your brain when you were talking about liking to tinker and some of the things that you have done trying to set land speed records. But one thing, it's not boring in the Evernham household.
No. We need to come back, because I got to tell you, when we did the year that we won Pikes Peak and Pebble Beach almost back to back, I was like, wait a minute, I'm a mechanic from New Jersey. I'm not supposed to be at either one of these places.